call back to order the Wildlife Commission meeting in Reno on May 15th. I will, let's see, we had recessed in the middle of item number 9. I was able to leave a voicemail with Mr. Gustafson. I was not able to reach his office or him, but he has voicemail. So any other commission items under legislative update or commission bill positions at this time? One last call for public comment. Vegas? Nope. Elko? All right, I'll close. Oh, go ahead. Close agenda item number 9. And we will move into agenda item number 13, which is our informational reports. 13A, Sage Grouse and Sagebrush Ecosystem Council update. Secretary Tony Wasley, an update on the status of the sage grouse will be provided, as well as an update on the Sagebrush Ecosystem Council. Mr. Wasley.
Thank you, Chairman Drew. Hopefully, many of you saw the press related to the Secretary of the Interior's visit. A couple weeks ago, the Secretary of the Interior came to the Department of Wildlife on Valley Road as part of an announcement that the bi-state population, the distinct population segment of the bi-state sage grouse was found not warranted for listing under the Endangered Species Act. The governor also attended that event, so there was a large media event where the secretary and the governor addressed a small gathering of folks on the lawn between the Department of Wildlife and the UNR building to the south. The secretary referenced the collaborative effort process that has been ongoing for over 15 years now on the bi-state. She complimented the leadership of the Nevada Department of Wildlife and our role in that process. Specifically, I'd like to call out Sean Espinoza for his role and efforts for a long time in that endeavor. There were a couple key pieces that Department of Interior referenced in arriving at the not warranted finding. One was the bi-state action plan. That action plan outlines over 70 specific actions to occur on the ground towards the conservation of that population. Initially, Fish and Wildlife Service said, we agree that this action plan is the roadmap and the proper recipe to conserve the long-term conservation of this population, but we don't have a very good feeling about the certainty of implementation. It was determined that it would cost about $38 million to implement that action plan. So we put a little pressure on some of our federal agency partners. Everybody made significant financial commitments. They put it in writing. John Toll on our staff compiled all of that in a single document showing that financial commitment, that written financial commitment. And although it was determined that it would take $38 million to fully implement that action plan, we generated over $45 million in financial commitment over the next 10 years from USDA, NRCS, Fish and Wildlife Service, Forest Service, BLM, California Department of Fish and Wildlife, Nevada Department of Wildlife, Mono County. And so we had a broad and diverse group of collaborating partners. We had an action plan that was deemed to be the appropriate action. Scientifically, the service believed that it was certain. They look at certainty of effectiveness and certainty of implementation. They thought certainly that action plan would be effective. When we showed the financial commitment, they saw the certainty of implementation, and that led them to the not warranted decision. So it was a significant decision. It was a significant day. Both the governor and the secretary acknowledged the Nevada Department of Wildlife's role in that effort. Certainly a lot of other significant partners, and no one partner could have done it without the full collective group effort. So at this point, we'll continue implementing that action plan. The service has the right and expectation to come in and reevaluate that population at least every 5 years to determine that we are still continuing towards implementation of that action plan, evaluating population responses, but we're pretty positive about what we've done, where we are, and the partnerships that we've built. On the greater sage grouse, yesterday we had a Sagebrush Ecosystem Council meeting. That process right now, the administrative draft of the final EIS was out for a 14-day period. All the cooperating agencies submitted comments that were due by close of business on Wednesday. We generated about 30 pages of comments specific to the administrative draft. Those are expected to be reviewed by the BLM. The final EIS will be issued sometime around the first week of June, is what we're being told by the BLM. At that time, there will be a public comment period. So general public and other interested parties will be able to comment. There's an appeal or a protest period rather. And ultimately will be subject to a governor's consistency review, and the governor will look at the state's plan and look for discrepancies between the state's plan and the BLM's final EIS, and have an opportunity to at least submit input toward any specific changes. It's still expected that the service will have to make a final decision on that by September of this year. There's been some legislation, a lot of legislation around this issue. Some of it aims to postpone a listing decision for 10 years. There's a bill out of Colorado and also out of California. Both of them have similar language in that they would postpone the listing decision for 10 years. There is a bill that has been passed limiting, it's an omnibus spending package that limits the Fish and Wildlife Service's ability to publish a listing finding. The Fish and Wildlife Service can find themselves in a situation in September. If they find it not warranted, then they would be able to announce that. If they found it warranted, they would be in a situation where they wouldn't be able to spend any money to publish that finding. However, they're also being required by a judge to publish that finding by September 30. So they would have to seek some form of legal direction as to whether to proceed with that listing or spend money in some way, shape, or form. As a process, I guess for the graders, the process, because Nevada has such a large percentage of federally administered land, the main plan in the state of Nevada is the BLM's land use plan amendment, and how that addresses various multiple uses that occur out on the landscape. The state has developed their plan and asked that the BLM adopt the state's plan as part of that land use plan amendment. And I can't, as a cooperating agency and having signed an MOU confidentiality, I can't necessarily discuss a lot about the differences. I can tell you that there are significant portions of the state plan that are incorporated into that land use plan amendment. There may be some other things that go above and beyond the state plan, and most of that will be brought to the attention through the governor's consistency review. That's really all I have, Chairman Drew, on that, but I would be more than happy to try to address any questions if there are any.
Questions for the director? Commissioner McNinch?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No questions, but Tony, I just wanted to congratulate you and your staff, and I know Gil was here earlier, and the folks that have been working on that by-state plan. That's a really big deal, and more importantly, you really laid the foundation and the groundwork and the playbook for how to do this in the future. So congratulations to you and your staff.
Thank you.
Just to maybe tag on to that briefly, I had an opportunity to be at the event where the Secretary of Interior was here and present. I thought the department did a really nice job just with the presentation, and it was pretty humbling to be in the presence of some of the dignitaries that were there, be it the governor or the folks from the Department of Interior, including the Secretary. But I did get an opportunity to introduce myself to the Secretary of Interior and thank her for coming out and how much it meant for all the people that had worked on the plan. And her specific response back to me was that she really appreciated what the department had been doing in regards to the bi-state, and specifically said that folks in Washington, D.C. had taken note of what had gone on in the bi-state, and people across the West had taken note in terms of what had happened in the bi-state. And I can't come up with a better compliment for what all happened there, or the fact that the department is held in such high esteem for what has gone on there. So I wanted to make sure that everyone was up to speed on what she told me, and I think that's a credit to staff and all the volunteers and folks who have been engaged in that effort. So kudos to you. With that, I'll close item 13A and go to item 13B, informational report, Heritage Committee, Commissioner Wallace. Heritage Committee Chairman Wallace will provide a report of yesterday's meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Heritage Committee met last night about 5:30, and we looked over the project proposals, and then we also put together a proposed heritage tag vendor worksheet. These will all be brought forth to the commission for the June meeting for approval by the commission. So they should be going out for each cab to review before the next commission meeting and just look over. I'm gonna go over and I'll give you guys what we proposed and where we're at. For the heritage tag vendors, we had 2 mule deer heritage tags available, and we awarded those to NBU Reno and the Mule Deer Foundation. We had 2 heritage antelope tags available, and we awarded those to Nevada Waterfowl Association and the Pershing County Chuckers. 2 Rocky Mountain elk, 1 to Northern Nevada SCI, and the other to Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation. 2 Nelson Bighorn sheep, 1 to NBU Reno, and the other to the Wild Sheep Foundation. And we had 1 California Bighorn sheep, and it was awarded to NBU Fallon. And then we had 5 wild turkey tags, and we awarded those to a new group called Nevada Sportsman Unlimited, and 1 to Pershing County Chucker, and 2 to the National Wild Turkey Federation, and another one to another new vendor, Bristlecone Family Services. And also, during the discussion on the wild turkey, we had a suggestion that maybe we make these tags available for the following spring, which would allow more vendors to be involved and possibly bring us potentially some more money on the auction tag on that, because as it is right now, we're kind of limited to the vendors who can get them out for in time. And so that's something I think the Heritage Committee is going to look at, and I don't know where we need to go from there, but that was a pretty good suggestion that maybe we can move forward with at some point. And then we went to onto the heritage proposals. And this year we had 13 different proposals, and we had $708,030 available for the different projects, and the total number for the projects was 825,229. So obviously we weren't able to award money to everyone, and a lot of them took a significant cut from what they were looking for, but I'll just give you a quick run through on them. Project 1601, 2016 Big Game Capture Transplant and Monitoring Program, requested $110,000, and we chose $90,000 as their funding. 1602, the Pequot Summit and Highway 80 Wildlife Safety Crossing, requested $100,000, and we awarded that one in full at $100,000. Project 1603, the Sierra Front Winter Mule Deer Habitat Improvement Project, requested $75,000, and that one was also awarded in full at $75,000. 1604, the Atlanta Road Sage Grouse Habitat Improvement had a request of $50,000. It too was funded fully at $50,000. Project 1605, Spruce Mountain Restoration Project, had a request of $150,000, and we awarded them $136,470. Project 1606, Mule Deer Corridor and Survival Analysis, requested $75,000, and it was awarded fully at $75,000. Project 1607, State Route 160 Big Game Monitoring Project, requested $40,000. It too was awarded the full amount at $40,000. Project 1608, Respiratory Pathogens in Mountain Goats, requested $98,60, and it was awarded $98,60 in full. The North Shelf Pinyon Juniper Removal Project requested $80,000, and it was awarded $75,000. Project 1610, Survey and Maintenance of Existing Big Game Guzzlers, requested $33,700, and it was awarded in full at $33,700. Project 1611, the Hidden Valley Guzzler Replacement, requested $29,212 and was awarded $13,000. Project 1612, the Sage Grouse Lake Brood Rearing Habitats is affected by wild horse and cattle management, requested $35,982, and we chose to leave that one unfunded at $0. Project 1613, Genetic Connectivity Among Desert Bighorn Sheep Populations in Nevada, requested $36,475, and we awarded them $10,000. And once again, these are our tentative amounts. We're going to hold another meeting on, I believe it was June 18th, the evening before the commission meeting, to finish this up in case there's anything else that needs to be taken care of, and maybe some changes at that point. We can take input from the cabs and anyone else at that point. So that's kind of what I've got at this point. Any of the other members have anything to add?
I just make one comment on the guzzler, the Hidden Valley Guzzler, with it being funded at $13,000. They do have some additional match money, so that project will be fully funded. And then with the 16-13 project at $10,000, they'll be able to utilize PR dollars to reach their max. So those will be fully funded as well.
Additional committee comments? Okay, additional questions or comment by the commission? Seeing none, I will close item 13B. We'll move to item 13C, Big Game Hunt Status Report, Wildlife Specialist Mike Cox. A summary report will be provided on the status of big game with updates on the new cow elk and ewe hunts implemented in 2014. Mike, are you going to do a PowerPoint?
Yes.
Okay. While everyone flips to the other side of the table, I would just like to report for you, Mike, and your staff that I actually had an opportunity to attend the Lyon County Advisory Board meeting this month, and they were highly complimentary of your status book. In fact, one of the members had mentioned that they spent so much time reading that they hadn't got to all the other stuff, but they really appreciated all the time and effort that went into that. And I know it takes you guys a lot of time, and the field biologists a lot of time to type that up, but currently there is definitely a demand for it. I know I've got about 3/4 of the way through all the reading it line for line, so.
But we all thank you for your kudos.
What is passed out of committee? Heads up.
Just be responsible with
I
that.
was wondering if Pat was kept looking to see.
Right. Good afternoon. Everybody wake up. Good, good. I was asked to give a brief presentation on how some of our new cow elk hunts went and the ewe hunts. So I've got a few slides. So I thought I'd start, Mike Cox, Big Game Staff Biologist, Nevada Department of Wildlife. So I thought I'd start with the demand for these tags. So 17,800 is the total number of different applicants that applied for some type of cow elk rifle hunt. And I'm just going to focus on the rifle hunts mostly through this presentation. And that includes the primary cow hunt, 4181, cow management, the new cow management hunt, which is 4481, either associated with the mule deer buck hunt or bull elk hunt, and then the depredation hunt, cow elk depredation hunt. Of those, there was that 9,300 that applied for the main cow elk hunt. That's kind of our bread and butter, our core cow elk hunters. Many of those, I think, probably never even put in for a bull tag. They just put in for a cow tag. And we allow for people to apply for multiple hunts. We can only draw one. And there was over 4,000 that had applied for more than one type of cow elk. And there was something like over 3,000 that applied for the cow management tag and a primary cow tag. So there was definitely people taking advantage of applying for all the different cow hunt options. I was going to list all the other hunts, but I just thought I'd give you a little rundown of the new cow management hunt. There was 11,850 applications, which blew me away. People were just absolutely not shy when they were applying for a mule deer tag. If there was a cow management option, they checked the box. We didn't, well, it'll come out here just shortly. So of those, that was the total number of tags that we made available, mostly in Area 6, 7, Area 13, and Area 22. And then we had the bull season in 075, and then a cow management tag with the bull hunt in Area 13. So, you know, I don't know if the rumors were saying, hey, this is a really great chance of drawing a tag. In the end, you know, you're only looking about a 15 to 20% chance of drawing. But a lot of these people, again, this was any choice, any of one of your 5 choices, you could have put that down. And so what happened a lot of times, while there was so few that drew, was people would put down 3 unit groups for deer that didn't have a cow management hunt. And then they'd put 2 that did. And with your ability to draw, your ability to apply for all 3 seasons or different types of hunts but only get 1 cow tag, there was 1,400 of these applications that ended up drawing the tag for cow elk, either the depredation hunt or the primary. So a huge amount of interest. We'll see if that continues, knowing a lot of people are going like, hey, I thought I was going to be, you know, almost guaranteed a tag, and I didn't get one, even though I drew a deer tag. So, but it was a very, very popular hunt. So on the map, color-coded, graduated color scheme, the lighter color, this is representing total cow harvest. So the lighter the color, the smaller, the fewer the number of cow elk, the deeper the brown, the higher the number of elk harvested. So the real dark browns, and this is total harvest, all cow elk hunts. This is over 150 cow elk harvested in a single unit of those units. So you can kind of see, kind of gives you an overview of where the intensity of elk harvest is statewide, and where all of our cow elk hunts exist. So 7-1, 7-2, 8-1, 8-1, mostly because of the depredation hunt, which is so successful up there in Goose Creek, and then 222 and 231.
Especially 222, 231.
All right, this one, same base map, and then on top of that is a pie chart. So yellow, this pie chart is representing the comparative harvest between the primary hunt, which is yellow, that 4181 hunt, and the red is the new cow management hunt. So for example, this one, it looks like pretty much a quarter of the total harvest in that area, that unit in Area 7 was due to cow management, was from cow management hunters. And then the rest was the primary 4181 harvest. So you can see some of the units we got relative to the total cow harvest, a fair amount of harvest by those cow management hunters that, you know, just had a tag in their back pocket during their deer hunt. So, and then of course this year we're looking at cow management hunts in 16 and in 231. All right, next couple slides are showing the harvest by the day of the season. And really the take home is it's kind of opportunistic when people come across an elk herd and when they may end up saying, you know, I'm gonna shoot this cow and take a time out on my deer hunt. So the blue columns is the total harvest of deer. So you can kind of see the trend. This is Area 6, opening day, big, huge. Leveled off. Oh, by the way, the green circles are the weekends. So you can see that was a Sunday, Saturday, Sunday, Saturday, Sunday. And of course you can see it tails off through the end of the week. And then Friday, big pump, another big increase in deer harvested, drops down. And then the Friday before the next weekend. The red columns are the cow management harvest during that same, you know, those hunters, those same hunters that are contributing to the blue columns are contributing to the cow harvested in the red. So there's no situation where these guys are waiting to get their deer harvested and then they go after cows. So I think it's an opportunistic hunt where they just happen to run into a cow elk herd and they take advantage of it. And as we expected, we didn't see many cows harvested in that late season. People are pretty focused when they get that late deer rifle season. They're pretty focused on that.
Yeah, it's too hard to get.
This is Area 7, pretty similar, although it was kind of interesting. Not a ton of harvest opening day on Area 7 deer, but a lot more cows were harvested. So, and you can dream up whatever story that may involve. A couple of interesting spikes here. I'll get into the hunter success rates, but Area 7 definitely had a better hunter success rate. All right, next couple slides are looking at the hunter success rates. And I'm comparing same yellow. Yellow is the primary 4181 hunt, and the red is the cow management hunt. Kind of wanted to see how much lower those cow management hunt success rates were. Now, when we were developing these quotas last year, we were assuming low teens for hunter success rate in our cow management hunts. We just thought there wouldn't be a ton harvested, but to our surprise, I mean, things were a lot better. So a little over 20% success for the Area 6, all of Area 6 early cow management hunt. And this somewhat comparable hunt is the primary cow rifle hunt that is in late September. That was just instituted last year to try to get harvest before the deer hunters show up. So that's been good, but pretty impressive again when you look at area 7. The cow management hunt in the early deer rifle, almost 25%, and then the mid-season, this actually is the late season during the deer hunt. Our cow management hunters were 30% success. So that's interesting. That in area 7, there were hunters willing to give up some days looking for that big trophy buck and take a cow elk. And very impressive was in 221 and 222, especially down in 222, down in the South Shells, almost equal hunter success as the standard cow hunt. So a lot of the deer hunters, again, took some time out and harvested some elk for us. This is comparing the wilderness hunter success rates, which I think we were kind of all surprised they were that high. So yellow is the primary cow management rifle hunt. The blue is the wilderness hunt success rate. And in fact, in almost all of these, the wilderness hunters were more successful than our standard cow elk hunters. So there's still some people, young or old, that have wheels on them, legs, that can kill an elk, and there's still, I think, a lot of people driving around and getting frustrated, not knowing what to do or where to go to find a cow. So it'll be interesting to see if this wilderness hunt success continues to stay up, in near that 40% rate. But and again, these hunters, they can hunt in wilderness if they want. Days hunted. Nothing earth-shattering. And again, it's hard to interpret some of this data. The yellow again is the primary cow management hunt 4181 hunt. So for example, in area 6, this was that late September hunt, hunted almost 5 days, average of 5 days. Cow management hunters, they're spending a little bit more time. Chances are they're hunting deer with a cow tag in their back pocket. That's probably why they're showing they're hunting 6 to close to 7 days out there, and that's pretty much consistent in area 6, in area 7, and area 22. So they're putting the time in anyway, or at least they're telling us they are. And then I just added the blue, which is the deer hunter success, which is happening at the same time as this cow management. Deer hunters are saying they're hunting somewhere between 4 and a little over 5 days, and a little bit less than the cow management. So they're probably, killing their buck, and then they're maybe still sticking around and hunting an extra day or two. And I don't know if you remember when we were in Boulder City during the season setting, I showed some data that those hunters that were successful on the cow management tag were also the ones that were more successful harvesting a buck. So it wasn't the guys who weren't successful harvesting a buck took a cow. Many of them took both. Okay, I think that is the antlerless elk harvest.
Can we make a couple comments?
Yes, come on up, Andy.
Yeah, Ken Gray, out of Oakland, Department of Wildlife. Today we had a conversation about outputs versus outcomes. And I've had the commission before ask, how long do we have these intensive cow hunts before we're where we want to be? Well, I think when you look at it, everything south of Interstate 80 now in our elk herds are at or below management objective levels. And you'll see that reflected in the quotas. All of the quotas you'll see south of Interstate 80 are either stable or decreasing. We made significant turns in the elk herd in the 076. I ran the model today just to take a look and see how much longer it would take with the type of harvest we had, if we have the same type of recruitment rates, and in 2 years we'll be back into within management objectives within that area. In 062, we've turned the corner and we're on our way down in that elk herd. The only elk herd really that we're a little upside down on right now is the 072 through 074 herd, and a lot of that is because we remodeled it. So I just wanted to show the actual outcomes is that we are making some really significant headway in our elk populations, and I think we can see light at the end of the tunnel where these really high quotas, even in Elko County, will start to swing, and within a couple of years we'll probably see them in a lot more moderate type numbers. So anyways, I thought that would be an interesting caveat to what you had to say.
It is good to have an outcome from a new method or an implemented tool in the toolbox. So we hope it continues. One thing I wanted to add, and I was talking to Monty Martin a couple days ago. If you remember, there was over almost 12,000 applications that checked somewhere first, second, third, fourth, fifth choice on their deer hunts that they would be willing to pick up a cow management tag. Every time they did that, they were charged an application fee of $18 for a resident. Yeah, people probably always are looking at us trying to say, hey, you're just making money. That wasn't the intent. And this was the first year out of the box. But I do think maybe we could put some thought to the process of how we allow people to apply for those tags, and if we're going to continue in the same process or look at something different. But the other thing that when we first started implementing non-resident cow tags, we didn't have a ton of interest. We had leftover non-resident tags in the same units that residents were unsuccessful in the first draw. And so there was tags left over after the first draw, and hunters were unsuccessful in those same unit groups. And they were frustrated to say, wait a minute, I put in for it, and now I see there's a leftover quota in the second draw. What's the deal? And as well, if the non-residents didn't go after all their tags, and they put it back, and then they had to apply again. And so I think that's something else is, that seamless, the term was a seamless redraw, where we just try to reissue those, but there's definitely going to have to be some minds that go into that. But anyway, I never heard any complaints from people that didn't get a cow management tag, and if there were, I don't think there were many. All right, actually this is both desert and California bighorn ewe hunt results. We'll just start on the left and go right, kind of in the same process as we did with the cow elk. The demand. So we had a total of 163 applicants for the 85 desert tags, and we had 56 applicants for the 15 California ewe tags. So statewide, it was a 2-to-1 draw odds for desert ewe tags, and there was 4 applicants for every 1 ewe tag. We did have 1 tag returned before the season opener. We did have several, I want to say maybe 10 hunters that did not hunt. So they had their tag, and they just ate it. And I don't know what the reasons are. I know 3 of them. A couple of them were injuries, and one guy was just really busy and just never made it out. Success rates, we had overall 74% success for the 3 different ewe hunts that were Lone Mountain, Monte Cristo Range, Muddy Mountains. And then the California Bighorn hunt was actually in the Sheep Creeks, which is 068. Sorry about that. Now it was 67%. Average age of the ewes were pretty similar. We actually did collect a few teeth to help our biologists. We don't look at ewe horns a lot for aging, so we'll see how good we were in aging those based on horn rings. Days hunted. It's like the Monte Cristos. They were out just a day, and then a couple days each for the other hunts, day and a half for the Sheep Creeks. So that's what I have. Questions?
Any questions from the commission? I think we have, Brian, where's Brian? Are you doing a PowerPoint for the Bears? Okay. We'll switch around and get back up to the table. All right, one last chance. Commission questions or comments? Thank you, Mike. Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Bliss.
Mike, I do have one question.
Yeah.
Do you see with these hunts being successful enough to bring our elk populations back into check, in the future, do you guys, you still see that you might have hunts going into January, or even in some of these units that are in check, moving some of the elk or the elk hunts in there and just allowing the folks that want to only hunt the cow elk in those units that opportunity?
I think we're just going to have to continue to assess the information. I know we still have hunter congestion issues, depending on who you talk to and how they hunt. So that hasn't gone away. Hopefully it hasn't gotten worse with the cow management hunt, but I still think there's an opportunity for us to work on that. In fact, I was talking to Ken Gray today that I'd like to try to pull biologists throughout the state together this summer and really take a look at our whole card and look at from August to January what's going on, what other hunts do we have out there, look at those hunts that are low success, can we do something different, and they've got a pretty good flavor of the hunter congestion concerns, but yeah, I think those added hunts that we extended those into January, the special hunts that we've added, we might consider reducing, but it is good to see that right out of the box they were more successful than we thought.
And I agree that they were successful. One of the concerns I had when we were developing the elk tags and the elk tags and the elk tags and all the other stuff is the opportunity for the folks who only wanted to hunt cow elk in the particular unit, that they would be losing some opportunity because we were going to spread tags around. And at the time, we thought, well, the special tags were going to be in addition to these other tags because we were so far over cap. And what I'm wondering is, once we get within the cap, if we're going to still
We're taking tags away from them.
from that and put back towards the folks that only want to hunt the cow elk.
Right. Yeah, and it's something that we're definitely sensitive to. I know you are. And I know the Eastern Region is working on an elk hunting workshop. I think one of the things we had a deficiency is those people who would like to hunt cow elk, they just weren't as successful as we'd like them to be. So we've got to help them along. So maybe we need to work on that.
Let's get us.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Maybe you should send them to Lincoln County for a couple days because those guys apparently know how to do it. All right. Other questions, comments?
I might just add for explanation to Chad's question. Oftentimes it becomes more about managing people and trying to get the harvest. So I understand the genesis of your question, but I think it'll be kind of a case-by-case basis that looks at hunter congestion and the timing of vulnerability to the animals to get the desired harvest to stay there, while also maintaining a balance between those that just want to hunt cows and those that maybe want to be in the field primarily to hunt deer but would opportunistically take a cow. So there isn't a simple answer to that question.
Anything else? All right. We'll move, close 13C and go to 13D, still on informational reports. Black bear hunt and status report, Game Division Administrator Brian Wakeling. The report will be provided on status of black bear hunt and ongoing population and harvest monitoring. Mr. Wakeling.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon. While Mike woke you up, hopefully I won't put you all back to sleep. I'll try to make this relatively brief, but the intent of this briefing is largely not only just to keep the commission up to date on how things are going since we've initiated the hunt on black bears in Nevada, but we've also had a commitment through the bear report that was approved by the commission, shared, committee submitted it to the commission approved it, shared with the legislature, that also includes basically an annual update on this. And so the information I'm providing today is prepared both by Carl Lackey, our game biologist within the region where bears reside, and also some information from Dr. Jim Settinger over at the University of Nevada, Reno, who's conducted an awful lot of the analytical analysis for us. Analytical analysis or something. Anyhow, what we're seeing is that the bear population continues to grow in size, although what we are seeing is a reduction in the rate at which that population is growing. When we look at the rate of growth over time, the estimated population in 1998 was under 100 bears. That population has continued to increase, as I mentioned. The current population estimate was 445 animals with a variance of a confidence interval around that of plus or minus 14 animals. Every time we get an additional animal marked, we get an additional animal handled, we're able to get a better handle overall on that way that growth curve continues to grow. For those who have been paying attention to this, they'll probably catch on to that in 2011 we said we had 456 plus or minus 39. And so, how can it continue to grow? Like I said, this is an iterative process that continues to look at refinements of that estimate. After this last program rerun, the 2014 rerun, the 2011 estimate was a little bit better refined, and it should have been 426. That still falls within the confidence interval of what we had published at that time. And so we know there's some variability. We get a better idea of what that population is, but we feel pretty confident that we've got a very good estimate of the number of bears there, and that population continues to grow. Current drought effects is something that's certainly a concern. And what we have seen with bear populations is that we've had some drought periods since 1998 when we first started looking at this population. We've been looking at it for a little over 17 years now. And it's gone through a couple of drought periods there, and the population has continued to grow throughout. There's always concern expressed about the effect of hunting these animals, especially during periods of time when we have conflicts, just the impact it might have on bears. And I think what I'd really like to emphasize is I think the last bear we harvested this last year weighed 550 pounds. What we're seeing is animals with a great deal of body fat that we have absolutely no evidence to see that would suggest that these bears are not in a good condition. Looking at the harvest that we have seen, we have a couple of parameters that we tend to look at that helps us identify whether or not, and this is part of the bear management plan, that helps us assess whether or not we're, how the level of exploitation that we have on this bear population. And essentially we look at the percent of females in the harvest, and if you're having a moderate harvest, and this is adapted from research that's been conducted in other areas as well as Nevada, when you're seeing 30 to 40% harvest comprised of females, then you're probably in a moderate range. If it's less than 30, you're harvesting lightly. If it's over 40, you're approaching a heavy harvest. When you look at the adult females in the harvest, what you really want to see is a higher proportion of adult females as opposed to young females. And those are females of breeding age 4 and older. Again, moderates 45 to 55. If you're exceeding 55% of the age composition being over that adult, then you're in a light situation. If it's below that 45, then you're in a heavy. Looking at the mean age of harvested males, 2 to 4 typically is in a moderate harvest. If you're in a heavy harvest area, you'll be taking younger bears again. The average age will be less than 2. Again, if it's a light harvest, you should be seeing the mean age being somewhere in the neighborhood of 4 and older. All 3 of those parameters, if you look at the 3-year average, if you look at all years, or if you look at just the most recent year of harvest with bears in Nevada, all indicate that we are harvesting this population at a very light level. We are seeing, in addition to population growth, we are also seeing some population expansion. We are encountering bears and bear sign droppings in some other areas. The evidence that we've been able to collect to date from the genetic data, DNA analysis that we've been able to collect and indicate that the bears are coming from the west to the east. And so we are picking up a few new sightings from there. We're also seeing some bears, most recent one I think was in Caliente, and that one probably didn't come from the west. That one probably was more on the eastern bear. That's all the information that I wanted to share. Is there any questions that the commission might have?
Questions for the commission? Commissioner Lynch?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, Brian, so we've got the light harvest, the moderate harvest, and the heavy harvest categories. Where do we start being concerned?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner McNinch, where we would probably see some suggestion that biologically, according to the guidelines that we have in front of us, we could tolerate moderate harvest and we wouldn't have any concerns. But specifically, where we would look to make adjustments is when we started to see heavy harvest. And that's also within the bear report. What the bear report the commission adopted said that we wouldn't want the harvest to result in negative population growth. We want it to remain stable. The report also suggested that we would want to keep the fall harvest structure as it is. And it doesn't specifically state that we want to keep the permits where they are, or that we want to keep the objective where it is, the harvest limit where it is. But At this point, that's the way the department has interpreted that direction, and we're trying to be reasonable about that. But essentially, most populations can tolerate a moderate harvest. So in other words, where we would start to look for, just looking at the guidelines that we have on harvest, is if we started to see more than 40% of the harvest comprise females, or if we started to see adult females comprising 45% or less of the harvest, or if we started to see the average age of males in the harvest 2 years or less.
Appreciate that. I guess what prompted it was the, the percent females in harvest. We have that 1 year, 2012, where we're at 9%. And two things. So the first question is, that puts us at 26% for the last 3 years. You take that year out, and you're in the moderate range already. And I suspect that if the numbers are being as consistent as it appears they can be, maybe more often, a little higher than not, that you could easily move into that moderate range this next year. So my thought process was, okay, you're probably a couple of females being taken away from being in that moderate range, even if you left that 9% in there. But helps to know that there's a little more, there's tolerance there, I guess.
Yes, and a couple of other things that I might point out. We've had a harvest limit of about 20 animals in place. This last year, we actually harvested 18. That was the highest harvest we've seen. It also was the highest number of marked bears, or in other words, bears that have been involved in some type of an activity that was, we really didn't want them involved in. We actually started to harvest a few of those. And so that was a favorable thing. Rarely, when you look at the suite of variables that we measure, so in this case, we're looking at females in the harvest, adult females, percent of the adult females, and the mean age of adult males. Rarely are you going to get all of them to line up for you at once. So we have to kind of look at the overall picture, have to look at, one may be heavy, one may be low. What does that mean biologically? And that's where we would listen to some of the recommendations biologically. Well, we listen to all of the recommendations biologically. And we carefully considered it this year, whether or not an increase in permits might be warranted. There's certainly a number of comments that we received from the public that think we should zero out the number of tags. We took as a department, we took the recommendations and the direction from the commission regarding the final bear report pretty seriously. We tried to largely keep things as unchanged as possible. We didn't think that was biologically irrelevant, and we think we're at a pretty light harvest currently.
Additional questions for Brian? Thank you.
Thank you.
With that, we'll close item 13B. Go to 13E, Wildlife Trust Fund Report. Deputy Director Cates, status of Wildlife Heritage Trust Fund account will be reported. Patrick?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'll be very brief. I have two reports for you. This is reports on the Wildlife Heritage Trust Fund, Wildlife Trust Fund. We're required to report twice a year on the status of that account. We got a little bit behind, so you actually have two reports for you. One is for state fiscal year 14. In state fiscal year 14, we collected approximately almost $294,000 in gifts and donations. And for the first 6 months of fiscal year 15, which takes us through last December, we collected $49,000. And as of year to date, since this report was prepared, we collected about another $120,000. And we actually seem to be trending down a little bit on our donations for the last 4 years. I'm not quite sure why that is, other than it's very situational based. I know we got a lot of money a few years ago for some special projects. So, and and there's detail on there. It goes back from every gift that we've gotten, and it's specifically what each item has been spent on, so there's a lot of detail there, so happy to answer any questions.
Questions of Patrick? Okay. I don't know, man. Thanks, Mr. Case. With that, we'll close agenda item 13E, move to agenda item number 13F. Still on informational reports, and this will be the department activity report. Director Wasley.
I won't be quite so brief. One thing I've been remiss on is introducing some new personnel. We hired Jennifer Newmark as our division administrator for the diversity division. She took Laura Richards' place. Jennifer had nearly 16 years of service with the Nevada Natural Heritage Program. She got her Bachelor's of Science degree here at UNR and then earned her Master's at Boston University working with bats and has been back in Nevada for the last 16 years. So she was at a level as division administrator for the last 7 years in the Natural Heritage Program. And so we kind of stole her away, but our gain is their loss. So I just wanted to introduce her. She started, what was it, in late February, early March? When did you start? Late March. And so she wasn't at the last commission meeting, and it just kind of dawned on me I should have done it when there was more people in the room. But anyhow, I wanted to do that. So I asked staff, as I've done for the last several commission meetings, to kind of provide some written highlights of various division activities. I got 13 pages. I'll try to get that down to 3 or 4. I'll try to read quickly, but there's some key things that I think it's important that the commission and those in attendance get exposed to. The department's executive budget for FY16 and 17 closed in the Joint Senate Finance and Assembly Ways and Means Committee this past Tuesday. The committee voted to support all of the department's budget recommendations with the exception of some Spanish translation for signage. The idea is that we have some areas where we have high use areas, fishing or boating, for example, where there was a desire to put some Spanish signage out as far as limits, seasons, safety requirements as far as flotation devices, etc. Our budget proposals were vetted and approved by the commission last spring and summer. Our budget presentations to the legislature are available on the NDOW website under the banner Our Agency, as well as the online support material for the prior commission meeting. U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service arrived at our offices last week. The auditors from the Solicitor General's office showed up to conduct their 5-year audit review of our wildlife and sport fish restoration grant funds. They'll be looking at 41 different federal grants involving the wildlife, sport, fish restoration, including our financial management systems, payroll, IT, documentation of costs, federal draws, program income, in-kind contributions, subgrants, and contracts, asset management, sportsman license certifications, which is the process by which they determine our eligibility, state sportsman revenue, and assent legislation. They indicated Nevada is considered a low-risk state. The audit is expected to last several months with no final report expected until sometime in 2016. Our Management Analyst 3 in the Director's Office has worked with headquarters Hunter Education staff to update the Hunter Education Instructors Manual and Policy. We particularly focused on updating the Americans with Disabilities Act section. This will be discussed part of their training retreat in Pioche this weekend, including an update to instructors on Assembly Bill 136. So we heard a little bit of an update on 136 earlier. Additionally, we're working on adding a checkbox in the online sign-up system where students can actually check a box. They'll be promoted to flag in advance whether they would need ADA accommodations or special aids for the course or the test. That was one of the main provisions that came out of AB 136, so we've been working to try to get ahead of that. Also been coordinating with the Western Region and Washoe County on the following issues of joint concern: feral cat colony ordinance, bear documentary, one we showed here in March, Bear Logic and Awareness Month, and some baby bird messaging to the public as far as leaving them alone. Some of you in this part of the state may have seen some of those press releases going out recently. As I indicated earlier, all regions held 10-year award events, recognized public service, first week in May. Big thanks to each of the staff who assisted in coordinating these employee events around the state. Several game division biologists attended the 53rd meeting of the Desert Bighorn Council in Borrego Springs, California in mid-April. Mike Cox and Perry Wolf presented Nevada data regarding herd health and adaptive management strategies for bighorn sheep. Pat Cummins and Brian Wakeling serve on the Desert Bighorn Council technical staff. Brian recently stepped down as the editor of the Desert Bighorn Council Transactions, and he was recognized for serving as the editor for volumes 47 through 52. Game and Habitat divisions prepared and presented on the effects of drought on game animals at the BLM's Drought Training Workshop held in early April. Several game division staff and field biologists will attend the did attend the Waqua Deer and Elk Workshop in Alberta, Canada this past week. At least 3 presentations will be given on mule deer and elk research and a status report on deer and elk populations in Nevada. Cody Schroeder also represented NDOW at a meeting of the Mule Deer Working Group while attending the Deer and Elk Workshop. The Eastern Region Game and Conservation Education Divisions are working in conjunction with Division Administrators for Game and Con Ed to embark on a program to promote the economic value of elk to the state. One of the first steps will be to rent rotating billboards in Elko with a simple message that Elko County now has a significant elk resource. Significant gains, as we heard earlier today, significant gains were made in bringing elk populations to objective levels despite one of the highest recruitment levels on record. All elk herds south of Interstate 80 are within the established population objectives. Harvest management strategies have resulted in a downward trend within the 062 through 068 and 076 through 081 unit groups. Only the 072 through 074 units are trending upwards, and most of this is due to adjusted population estimates, as Ken Gray earlier indicated. Added harvest strategies are expected to reverse this trend in these units. In unit group 061 and 071, objectives are based on vegetation monitoring and not population size. However, the recent radio marked elk movement data suggests a large number of elk in this unit group are spending substantial time in Idaho and on the Duck Valley Indian Reservation. Game Division staff updated the annual Big Game Tag Application Workshop presentation and gave that presentation Thursday, March 26th, to about 60 sportsmen at the NDOW office on Valley Road. Staff from Hunter Education and the license office also attended to answer tag applicant eligibility and alternate tag program questions. 2014 harvest information was made available to the public on NDOW's website in time for the big game application process. Eastern Region elk incentive tag update. All elk incentive packages have been received and reviewed from landowners. 99 tags will be issued pending commission approval, which represents a 17 tag drop from last year, with all the decreases occurring in Unit 075 and UA1. The 2015 incentive tags are still higher than those issued in 2013. The anomaly was in 2014 when very high bull quotas caused a substantial increase in the incentive tags. One individual has indicated he wants to go to arbitration for the 5th time. He was informed that arbitration will occur at the commission level pending final approval of the process that we discussed earlier today. Sharp-tailed grouse, 16 NDOW employees and 3 volunteers completed a sharp-tailed grouse trapping and translocation project from Idaho to Nevada. Participation involved game, fisheries, habitat, conservation education, and law enforcement divisions. 49 sharp-tailed grouse consisting of 34 hens and 15 males were successfully released in Nevada. 39 of the released grouse were fitted with radio collars and will be monitored throughout the year by USGS. Only 6 days were required to capture the targeted quota. Recently, the USGS reported that 16 males were observed on a lek in Nevada near the release site. A large number of hens were also reported to be near the lek. Idaho Fish and Game will conduct an evaluation to determine if they will continue providing sharp-tailed grouse to Nevada for 2 more years. Criteria will include population levels of sharp-tailed grouse in Idaho, the initial success of the grouse reestablishment in Nevada, and if adequate monitoring and communication of the results are occurring on the release of grouse. Waterfowl, the Pacific Flyway Study Committee and the Dove Task Force have asked NDOW to participate in a 3-year study that will compare the old Dove survey standard, the Dove coup counts or call count surveys, to the current method of band returns and wing bee data. Nevada has been asked to conduct 9 routes during the study term. This test will ensure that data exists to support dove seasons. Waterfowl breeding bird population surveys are scheduled for this week. Surveys take place statewide and will take several days. Many of the traditional survey transects will be eliminated this year due to the current drought conditions and lack of water. The Fisheries Division staff has finished an unprecedented level of NEPA analysis for the treatment projects this summer to remove northern pike from Cummins and Bassett Lakes and a small private reservoir in Eureka County. Public scoping and multiple public meetings were held and formal environmental assessment documents completed, which have been forwarded to the Fish and Wildlife Service Federal Aid Office. At this time, the Bassett and Cummins Lakes treatments are still on schedule for completion by late summer of 2015. The primary concern and possible roadblock is obtaining the 1,800 gallons of rotenone fish toxicant in time because of the challenges with the state purchasing system. Fisheries Division is also moving forward with plans to introduce sterile hybrid tiger muskie in Chimney Reservoir in Humboldt County. The purpose is to provide control for a nuisance carp problem and eventually develop a warm water fishery. This also required preparation of an environmental assessment, full NEPA analysis, and public hearings and scoping. The first release of tiger muskie would occur in 2016. Staff is working on an access agreement with the Hawthorne Ammunition Depot for public access to Rose Creek Reservoir as an urban fishery for the Hawthorne area. The Hawthorne Ammunition Depot is interested in opening the reservoir to the public, but it would be on a limited scale for base security reasons. Total number of anglers at any one time with no restrictions on who can fish, just total numbers of anglers. Several important projects to enhance and protect sport and native fishes have been completed. Sage Creek Fish Barrier has been completed by the contractor. The purpose of the barrier is to protect pure Lahontan cutthroat trout in Sage Creek, which is a tributary to McDermott Creek, from non-native trout encroachment. Fly Canyon exclosure fence in Soldier Meadows was completed at the end of March to protect an isolated population of desert dace from extirpation due to overutilization of the spring habitat by feral horses with some help from the Fish and Wildlife Service. This project is in BLM Wilderness and has taken almost 5 years to get to completion. Also a project to remove a culvert barrier in Sunnyside Creek and improve habitat and fish passage for the endangered White River spine dace on Kirch Wildlife Management Area was completed in early April. Staff is continuing to work with the Winnemucca BLM to complete an exclosure fence around the headwater springs of Crowley Creek to protect Lahontan cutthroat trout populations impacted by drought conditions. We've been in discussion with the BLM over Crowley Creek issues for 10 years, but progress is being made. The BLM has issued a full force and effect decision closing the Jordan Meadows allotment to grazing until the exclosure fence problems at Crowley Creek are resolved because of the severe resource damage. NDOW is in coordination with the City of Sparks and UNR, Dr. Sudeep Chandra on water quality study at the Sparks Marina. The purpose of the study is to identify what is occurring physically in the lake that's causing the winter fish kills that have been occurring the past 2 years. The data collected will help inform managers on how best to address the problem and if it is even possible. Fisheries and Mason Valley hatchery staff are working with the Walker Basin Conservancy, to identify suitable stocking locations on the East Fork of the Walker River, where the Conservancy is planning to allow public access to the river on the Raptor 7 Ranch, which was acquired in 2013. We hope to work with the Conservancy to provide additional fishing opportunity on public properties throughout the Walker Basin as they become available. Bear with me, we're getting there. Work has started to set up The Marlette Lake spawning station for this year, tributary flows are extremely low because of the drought, which could significantly affect spawning success for Tahoe, rainbow, and cutthroat trout. Extremely low storage levels at Lake Mead will continue to cause problems for anglers and watercraft users through 2015. The current lake elevation is 1,078 feet, the lowest since May of 1937. National Park Service will be extending boat ramps starting this month, which will cause further problems for boaters. Aquatic invasive species inspection and watercraft decontamination stations are being set up for the 2015 boating season. Lakes Mead, Mojave, and South Fork Reservoir stations are fully staffed and operational. The station at South Fork has already intercepted and inspected at least one boat coming from Lake Mead. Wild Horse, Rye Patch, and Lahontan sites are being set up with state parks and will be fully staffed in the next week. In the operations division, the big game application period closed Monday, April 20th, which was followed by the week-long bonus point only application period. Total tag and bonus point applications received this year by systems consultants set a new record, 218,219 applications compared to 202,173 in 2014. Single-day record for numbers of applications was also set on April 20th with 33,577 applications. Despite a record year, some applicants encountered technical difficulties on the last day of the tag application period. Difficulties appeared to begin around 8:20 p.m. and continued off and on until shortly before 11 p.m. the deadline. 136 people reported problems in completing applications. Systems Consultants is reviewing the performance, which contradicts their experience this year with Utah that had nearly twice the volume and no similar problems. There's an issue that Microsoft has acknowledged with other similar websites, and Systems Consultants is pursuing that as a possible solution. The draw will take place on Wednesday, May 27th, with results posted on the huntnevada.com website by late afternoon, Friday, May 29th. With the approval of Senate Bill 41, the department was postured to begin offering the new electronic federal duck stamp this year. We're working through the remaining minor technical and administrative steps and plan to offer the new electronic stamp privilege beginning August 1st of 2015. The Habitat Division, the Western Complex of Wildlife Management Areas, that crew has been out at the Humboldt Wildlife Management Area spraying noxious weeds, repairing the observation tower, addressing signage issues, and general cleanup of the area. Overton Wildlife Management Area is still repairing impacts from last year's floods. Corrective actions are being implemented in conjunction with surrounding landowners based on the assessment of impacts received. This weekend, the Northern Water Development crew will be working with approximately 100 volunteers to build 2 new guzzlers near Cherry Mountain in northern Washoe County. The Bald Mountain Mine administrative draft of the draft environmental impact statement will be released for a 2-week review on May 21st. NDOW has submitted our Carson City Resource Management Plan comments, despite the comment period being extended until May 28th. Upland Game and Duck Stamp project proposals have been received and are under review in preparation for the June Commission meeting. Contracts have been awarded for PJ thinning on Spruce Mountain, Mill Canyon, and Atlanta Road projects. We recently finalized our review and provided comments on the final Greater Sage Grouse land use plan amendment that I referenced earlier in the Sage Grouse update. From law enforcement, an egregious closed season and needless waste elk poaching case in the Jarbidge area got some media attention, and that's led to some possible suspects. Wardens are following those up. Many leads came in after the Humane Society increased the reward amount to $5,000. An antelope case was pled out in Elko County in which a tag holder shot the wrong sex antelope during the season of 2013. The hunter pled to a suspended prosecution of hindering a game warden and paid a civil penalty of $1,700 to NDOW's Operation Game Thief, along with criminal penalty fines. A case in Lander County has been filed in which 2 individuals have been charged with the intentional killing of an antelope out of season and without a tag. A rare, by Nevada standards, commercial fishing investigation at Lake Tahoe has resulted in the seizure of 173 lobster traps being used for crawdads. Charges are pending in Douglas County for commercial wildlife collection without a permit. With the warming weather, southern region wardens have experienced an increase in boating activity, fishing violations, and urban wildlife complaints. Quick personnel update. Given some of the challenges we've had in recruiting and maintaining wardens, 2 more game wardens have submitted letters of resignation, and game warden Captain Paul Dankowski has announced his retirement effective July 6th, concluding a great 31-year career with NDOW. This brings the total to 5 game warden jobs we will attempt to fill in the upcoming months. We recently hired a seasonal game warden for Lake Tahoe, but were unable to fill a similar position in Lake Mead due to a lack of applicants. 3 of last fall's new hires have graduated from the Post Academy in Carson and will now begin field training. 5 more are scheduled to graduate from the Southern Nevada Academy in July. We also just sent 4 game wardens to a field training officer school to help deal with the flood of new hire wardens. To put our coverage problems in perspective, we've been receiving complaints about gross over limits, fishing violations occurring at some rural Humboldt County reservoirs, but addressing the problem has proven difficult since the nearest working game warden is stationed over 190 miles away. The 2015 legislative session continues to consume at least 75% of the chief game warden's time. The bulk of this has been spent trying to defend against bad legislation that would be damaging to Nevada's wildlife.
Take a breath.
Now who's sleeping? Everybody.
I'm wide awake, man.
Are you? There's something in here for everybody if you listen. If you listen.
Good to see you on the ball.
Yeah. In April, the Eastern Regions from Conservation Education. In April, the Eastern Region Conservation Education staff, along with the Game Division, BLM, and the Northeast Nevada Stewardship Group, took nearly 30 participants on the 2nd annual Elko County Sage Grouse Experience Tour. Participants were taken to a lek in North Ruby Valley and then proceeded to the Lamoille Rancher Center for breakfast, followed by presentations on topics such as how radio collars work, classifying birds, using wings, and the natural history of the bird. In a joint effort between the Conservation Education and Law Enforcement Divisions, NDOW participated in the Reno River Festival last weekend. Although the kayaking events were canceled due to low water, NDOW staff took the opportunity to educate the mini festival attendees about fishing opportunities on the Truckee River and general boating safety. This weekend, Conservation Education staff is hosting the 2015 Outdoor Education Academy at Echo Canyon State Park in Pioche. Each year, volunteer hunter and angler education instructors from across the state gather to engage in this training academy. This year's academy will address a host of issues, including compliance with the Americans with Disabilities Act, new archery regulations, streamlined hunter education courses, field care for game, outdoor survival, amongst many others. Free Fishing Day event preparations are underway around the state. On June 13th, Free Fishing Day events will be available in Reno, Sparks, Las Vegas, and Elko. The 2015 Nevada Hunting Guide is currently undergoing a redesign, like the 2015 big game seasons and application regulation publication, and the 2015 Nevada Fishing Guide. NDOW has made several changes in an effort to make it more user-friendly. The digital edition will also be available with expanded content. A new and fully revised Eastern Region Fishable Waters map will soon be available with completely updated information and mapping from Fisheries Division and GIS section. This new map will provide the latest information on fishing for the Eastern Region. And last but not least, the Wildlife Diversity Report. Several efforts are underway statewide to survey for northern goshawks. Staff has developed an aerial and ground survey protocol for northern goshawks throughout Nevada for the 2015 season. In late March and early April, the Elko area biologist was able to conduct 8 hours of helicopter surveys in search of goshawk nests from the snowstorms, North Tuscaroras, Merritt Mountain, and Buck Creek Mountains. One flight was accomplished in White Pine County, with more focal areas being targeted in this region for the spring of 2016. Several efforts underway to better understand golden eagle movements and habitat use, including aerial and ground surveys for golden eagles, radio transmitter work, and creating a western eagle nesting habitat model that will aid NDOW in better managing this important species. White nose syndrome and Nevada bats. Diversity staff continues to deploy and maintain data loggers that record both temperatures and humidity in mines and caves across Nevada. To date, Diversity has roughly 128 data loggers deployed across 25 sites in the state. This effort is in response to national initiatives to better understand the roosting climates the bats utilize. White nose syndrome, which is caused by a fungus, is known to be facilitated by certain temperatures and humidity levels. This disease has killed off a majority of populations of certain species of bats in some states in the eastern half of the U.S. Currently not detected in Nevada, white nose syndrome is moving west, and early detection will be important in mitigating its effects. Last page. Desert tortoises, staff continue to work with Fish and Wildlife Service, Tortoise Group, and other partners to relay messages to the public regarding how to deal with displaced and unwanted captive tortoises when they emerge this spring. A sterilization workshop will be convened by the Fish and Wildlife Service, the Tortoise Group, and NDOW, as well as local veterinarians in Las Vegas Valley in mid-July. Fish and Wildlife Service is organizing a tag and microchip workshop for the public to bring in their captive tortoises in Las Vegas. Only one captive desert tortoise is allowed for possession as of May 1st, 2013 to further limit overbreeding of captives. Studies are also being initiated on yellow pine chipmunk genetics, small mammals and climate change, pygmy rabbits and habitat use. There are multi-year studies, and they'll provide important information for best management of these wildlife action plan priority species. Ongoing work continues on yellow-billed cuckoo, southwestern willow flycatchers, Ridgway's rail, Gila monsters, and other and breeding birds. Staff biologists are providing the Pacific Flyway Council with priority resource conservation concerns for migratory birds as part of an effort to integrate top priorities and link common themes for all western states. Finally, we presented at the 3rd annual conference of the North American Pika Consortium. You didn't know there was such a thing, did you? As well as the joint North American Bat Working Group. Thanks for bearing with me. I think it's oftentimes there's a lot of stuff in there. I seem to always apologize for the length of this report, but it seems like we spend 95% of our time in this meeting dealing with about 10% of what our jobs are, and I see this as a unique opportunity to share some of the other things that the agency does with not only the commission, but the county advisory board members, and I learn every time I read that myself. So thanks for bearing with me.
Appreciate it. Any questions for the director? Okay, hearing none, we'll close item 13F. Thank you, Director Walker. Move to item 13G, litigation report, Deputy Attorney General Harry Ward.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioners, for the record, Deputy Attorney General Harry Ward, I have nothing further than what was on my litigation report.
Questions for Mr. Ward? Okay, seeing none, I'll close item 13G. I'll move to item 14, public comment period. Persons wishing to speak are requested to complete a speaker's card and present it to the recording secretary. No action can be taken by the commission at this time. Any item requiring commission action may be scheduled on a future commission agenda. Public comment, Reno. Come on up.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, my name is Gerald Wynn from the Hunter Association, and in accordance with the open meeting law, I'm going to request my comments be part of all distributed minutes for this meeting. In an attempt to disqualify, and I've got a written prepared statement, in an attempt to disqualify a bill currently in the legislature now, the director has asked the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service to prepare a letter calling attention to a diversion of funds by the bill to railroad the bill. The Fish and Wildlife Service letter states the bill in the legislature has to have the commission to approve the predator plan, and a certain amount of fees collected must go for predator work. The Fish and Wildlife Service's letter states if the commission has to approve use of the funds, there may be a loss of control of revenues and a possible diversion. The letter also states directly where the fees go might also be a diversion. The Fish and Wildlife Service requests to give approval authority to NDOW rather than the commission and eliminate the provision where the funds are mandated to go. Remember, this is what the director asked for. you commissioners would lose all of your authority if this happens, and we would therefore not need a commission. In fact, the Fish and Wildlife Service will be telling the state how and where to spend its monies. Duck stamp monies, upland game stamp monies, and heritage tags all require commission approval currently. Under the NDOW Director's solicitation and idea of diversion, then we must also eliminate the duck stamp program, the upland game stamp program, the elk mitigation fee program, the trout stamp program, because they all dictate the fees can only, 100% of them, be used for a specific program. Just like the predator fees say currently in NRS. Also, diverting some of the predator fees to education should also be a diversion. All of these fees should be illegal because Nevada explicitly states how 100% of the monies of these tags are to be spent. There's no difference between how these monies are spent and the so-called diversion of the predator fees. If this is a commission opinion also, then we have to do away with the other fees that fall under the same law, under the classification of diversion. By requesting this opinion of the Fish and Wildlife Service, our director is jeopardizing all of our successful state revenue producing programs for wildlife. When and if all of these programs that brought so many sportsmen and wildlife in Nevada are eliminated, we can give credit to the current director and possibly the commission for making this happen. Thank you.
Additional public comment in Reno? Come on up, Paul. If you've got it, come on up, and we'll get to the end of the day here. Folks are tired.
Paul Dixon, Clark County, speaking on behalf of myself. A question to the director and maybe Tyler Turnipseed, this more so than to the commission, is that in the urban ponds in Las Vegas, over the last 6 years that I've been chairman, there's been a lot of concerns by people raised that we have a lot of people fishing the urban ponds that don't have fishing licenses. And I was wondering whether or not it's a lack of resources, or we just don't really patrol the urban ponds the way we patrol Lake Mead or our reservoirs or streams and other things. And is it something that we want to have people who are on urban ponds have fishing licenses, or is that a place that we're trying to train people? I'm trying to get an answer back to get to people. You don't have to answer today, but if you guys could maybe think about that and get me an answer in writing or something, if I could give it to the CAB and present it to the public, that's really what I'd like to do. Only because I get asked, and I'm not ever sure who I really need to direct that to. Thank you.
Additional public comment, Reno? Seeing none, go ahead, Sean, come on up.
Sean Shea, this is just for myself. About that black bear hunt status report, I think the state does a great job on that, it really does. But I think it's a little misleading when they say 445 plus or minus 14, because there's only 3 mountain ranges that they're running that estimate off of. I mean, when you look at the whole thing, they're running 500 to 700 animals, so I think that's kind of left out on that report. So just as a heads up. And then on the female harvest, I think that's a little misleading too, because I know one of them, the female harvest was actually this bear would have been a depredation problem, but one of the hunters decided he was gonna help that instead of it going to the state or for sale. He actually harvested that bear, so I think he probably wouldn't have harvested it if it wasn't a depredation thing in Washoe Valley. So I think it's a little bit misleading how many females are actually taken out of that. So.
Additional comment, Reno? Seeing none, public comment in Las Vegas?
No comment in Las Vegas, Chairman.
Okay, Elko?
No comment in Elko.
Okay, with that, we will close agenda item 14, and before we recess for the afternoon, just a couple reminders. Tomorrow will be our quota setting meeting. That'll be the main part of the agenda. We have a lot of information to get through. In talking with staff, it sounds like we will be working off the handout that everyone got, so make sure you come with your handout ready to go. County advisory boards, I think we have your recommendations probably scattered throughout our emails. I think the staff will also put together a summary of all the CAB recommendations, but please don't be shy about coming up and making the recommendation in person in case we have questions for you. Just a recommendation so that we have a good meeting tomorrow. Everyone come engaged, be ready, and for my commissioners, be ready to go and have some motions for you. Outside of that, we'll recess and we will adjourn here tomorrow morning at 8:30. Thank you.